Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome to the first of many Outrider videos on my channel. This video is going to focus on everything you need to know for the upcoming release of Outriders and how to be best prepared going forward. If you have any additional questions after the video, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and a like on the video if you found it useful. Thank you guys for watching, and let's get started. First thing I want to talk about in this video is if you didn't play the demo or haven't put in as many hours as other players, please don't feel discouraged from playing the full game. One of my friends who recently became interested in the game got a little discouraged when I told him how many hours other players, including myself, have already spent farming the demo. Yes, everything players grinded from the demo will be carried over, but the developers highly emphasize that the content in the demo barely scratches the surface of the full game. At the end of the day, everything players farmed and are using in the demo will become irrelevant pretty quickly. The legendaries many players farmed in the demo were mainly grinded for the mods and not the gear itself. As you advance your world tier up to 15, which was capped at 5 during the demo, legendary drop percentages drastically increase, and so do the value in the drops and mods you will receive. The two biggest advantages to playing the demo, in my opinion, is the progression on accolades, which those rewards are composed of all cosmetics and have no impact on the strength of your character, and the materials you get from dismantling gear that will be later used when crafting. The crafting system itself was not included in the demo, but you were able to farm some of the components you will be using. The demo allowed us to farm 5 of the total 6 components that will be in the full game, and included a cap on these resources so people did not overfarm them. The last component will be called drop pod resources that you will get once you complete expeditions, which is in the in-game content of Outriders. I will be going over both the in-game content and crafting system later in the video, but for now, let's jump back a little and talk about the classes available on release. There are 4 classes in Outriders to choose from, each with its own variation of sustainability and DPS. This game is all about chaining your abilities and weapon damage together in order to annihilate your enemies, but also keep yourself alive. Each class has a selection of 8 abilities in which you will be able to equip 3 that best complement your build and playstyle. First class I want to dive into is the Trickster. This is definitely the most flashy of all the classes and will probably be the most played on release. This class specializes in using high movement to maximize damage potential and evade its enemies. Every time you kill an enemy close range, you will gain a decaying shield and heal for 20% of your maximum health. There is also a 5% mitigation to all damage while this shield is active. Although the class is mainly treated as an assassin, I'm sure speccing into the military class will definitely provide usefulness if you find yourself needing more sustainability. Second class we will be talking about is my personal favorite and what I will be playing first, the Pyromancer. If I wasn't so late to discovering Outriders and doing YouTube videos for it, then I would have loved to dive more into this class, but for the purpose of this video, we will stick to the basics. This class is the mid-range controller of the battlefield, and in my opinion will be pivotal when it comes to clearing in-game. Pyromancers utilize their abilities to mark enemies on the battlefield, resulting in increased damage and sustainability depending on your build. Many of your abilities also inflict burn that deal damage over time. Pyromancers can also inflict ash, which can interrupt and immobilize their enemies for a brief period of time. This class is mainly played in medium range, but don't be afraid to get close to your enemies in order to best chain your abilities and deal the most damage. The third class we will be jumping into is the Devastator. This is the so-called tank class of Outriders, but to be honest, every time I think of this class, this is what comes to mind. If the Trickster class is all about evasion and getting behind your enemies, then this class likes to look their enemies in the eyes as they are pulverized to dust. The Devastator uses gravitational and earth-based abilities in order to maneuver the battlefield and crush all foes in its path. The base stats for this class give it more health and armor compared to the other classes and restores a larger amount of HP per kill compared to the Trickster. The biggest thing to note about this class is that health is restored upon any close range kill around you, meaning you do not have to kill the enemy yourself to restore HP. Any enemies that your allies kill or just happen to die around you will restore your HP, making this class the ideal frontliner of your party. Moving on to the fourth and final class, the Technomancer. Most players will view this class as the healer of Outriders, but considering the sustainability each class offers itself, I consider this class more utility than anything else. Depending on your knowledge of the battlefield and how you use your gadgets will make or break this character. From the time I spent playing this class in the demo and the research I've done, gadget usage and positioning seems to be the key factor to success. In my opinion, the Technomancer will offer the most versatility in terms of playstyle when compared to the other classes because it can be played anywhere on the battlefield. Although the base class stats and top skill tree focuses long range damage, there are skill nodes that when invested points into decrease the total distance considered to be long range damage. I don't know the exact distance of what the base long range threshold is, and if you do, please feel free to share that in the comments, but regardless, I expect to see a lot of players really diversify their playstyle and mix it up when playing this class. Okay, so now that you've got the basic idea of what class you're interested in, let's talk a little bit about the build paths you will be taking. Each class tree follows the same patterns in terms of how you're going to build your character. The top tree focuses on maximizing weapon damage and using that weapon damage to also increase your sustain and anomaly power. The middle tree heavily focuses on sustainability, applying status effects, and also focusing on skill cooldown reduction, which in turn can increase your weapon damage, anomaly power, and shielding depending on your class. The bottom tree prioritizes increasing anomaly power and reducing skill cooldown, which in turn can increase your weapon damage based upon your anomaly power and also play a factor in your sustainability depending on your class and what node you decide to spec into. Now, the first question I always ask myself when I play MMOs that deal with extensive class trees like Outriders is going a hybrid build worth it? Meaning, would specking into multiple skill trees possibly benefit you more than focusing on one? Considering you only get 20 class points upon reaching level 30, which is the max level at game release, I would not advise doing a hybrid build. Most example builds I've done and seen that maximize weapon damage, sustainability, or anomaly power all focus one tree. Maybe there could be some in-game gear, mods, or crafting options that allow us to replace certain abilities, making hybrid worth it in the full game, but from the information they've given us to this point, I just don't see it being very good. Now, all of the classes and builds I just went over are the basic fundamentals of what these classes are capable of. Don't be afraid to do some limit testing or really try out different methods that best work out for your playstyle. Alright, so now that you have a general idea of what class and build path you will be taking, let's get into the action of what to expect when you hop into the game. First thing we will be talking about is the campaign, which when including side quests consists of about 40 hours of gameplay that does not include any in-game content or additional content to be released later. If you played the demo and maxed your level in world tier, then you will be starting at level 7 world tier 5 and finally able to leave the first area once accepting the quest through Yaka. Going back to what I said earlier about if you didn't play the demo, do not worry. The demo only consists of about 1 to 2 hours of gameplay, which also include the prologue and the side quests given to you in the first area. Unlike most MMOs out, I believe side quests are going to play a crucial role in your character development and preparing players for the endgame. I assume once you reach a higher world tier level, you will need to refarm some of the side quests and monster hunts for certain components that will relate to your gear. When you take a look at the increase in dropped item level and drop rate modifiers as your world tier progresses, I'm sure even with expeditions being the main source of in-game loot, that there will be some campaign content that can be replayed at a higher level for different or better drops. Monster hunts are challenging optimal missions that you can complete for various rewards depending on your world tier level. Second to the in-game expeditions, this will probably be one of my favorite parts of Outriders. Monster hunts will take you directly into the habitat of your enemy and depending on the monster will swarm you with hordes of enemies. As a personal fan of Monster Hunter World and Borderlands, this just seems like the perfect mix. You will find these monster hunts from half-eating carcasses as you traverse the battlefield, and unlike expeditions, I feel like monster hunts will provide sufficient farming for solo players considering you will be able to rescale the world level to the difficulty that best suits your playstyle. Lastly, there has also been leaks on another form of side quest called bounty hunting. There is no official gameplay footage of this out, but we do know the basics of how they will function. You will be able to receive these bounties from different hubs and be able to interact with random wanted posters scattered throughout the world. Just like the monster hunts, I assume as your world tier level progresses, so do the difficulty of these bounties. Alright, so we finally progressed through the campaign and made it to the end game of Outriders called Expeditions. It is important to note that these new areas are completely separate from the campaign, meaning Expeditions won't be any replayed campaign content and will be all brand new areas going forward. This is the content in Outriders that players will spend most of their time doing in order to really perfect their gear and playstyle. Each expedition is unique to itself, meaning their mechanics, challenges, and storylines are completely separate from other Outrider content. Also, Expeditions, unlike the other content in the game, provides guaranteed rewards depending on the difficulty and the time it takes to complete them. For example, starting at tier 12, you will be guaranteed 1 legendary and 1 epic gear piece upon completing the expedition in the time frame given. It is important to note that all loot in expeditions will only be dropped at the end of the run and do not include just the guaranteed loot. So if you happen to die in the middle of the run, don't think you just wasted all of your time. You will still get the loot up until the point of the death in the run, but you will not get any of the guaranteed loot from the timer since you did not complete the expedition. If you find an expedition to be too difficult for your current gear, do not worry. The challenge tiers in expeditions function much like how the world tier functions, as in they allow you to raise and lower the difficulty at the cost of your rewards. However, these tiers do work a little differently when it comes to unlocking the higher challenge tiers. The faster you complete expeditions gives you guaranteed loot, but can also raise your challenge tier by different levels, thus unlocking new expedition areas in the process. In the Outriders of Enoch, which is the first expedition gameplay footage shown to us, you can see in the reward section alongside your guaranteed loot an increase in the challenge tiers. Assuming there are 15 expedition areas, this means you will unlock each new expedition corresponding to the challenge tier being unlocked. So for example, if you were to clear Outriders of Enoch within the lowest time frame on your first try, then along with 2 guaranteed epic and rare gear pieces, you will also unlock 3 new expedition areas along with unlocking tier 4 of the Outriders of Enoch expedition. Not only is maximizing your character's weapons and gear through the crafting system important when taking on these expeditions, but also synergizing your abilities with party members will be crucial in clearing the in-game content. The better you and your party members understand the expedition and the way each of your character works, the more smooth and efficient your runs will be. Now, moving on to the crafting system, which is something I actually thought twice about doing in this video, because like most MMOs, the crafting system plays a vital role in maximizing your gear's potential for the in-game content. So only spending 3 to 5 minutes doesn't really do it justice, but for the time purpose of this video, I will just be going over what the crafting system can do and the most important things you need to know when you first start crafting. There are 5 ways in which you can improve your gear through the crafting system in Outriders. You can raise the attributes of your weapon or armor, increase its base level, swap weapon variances, raise the rarity of your gear, and lastly mod the gear to your exact specifications. The first thing we are going to be talking about is raising your gear's attributes. If you refer back to what I said earlier about farming resources in the demo, this is when those will come in handy. You can raise the attributes of any gear by using what's called anomaly shards. These shards can be acquired by dismantling gear, and the type of shard you will receive is indicated by the shard icon next to the attribute on that weapon. All 3 attributes on weapons and armor can be upgraded and have a total of 6 upgrade stages available. When dismantling an item whose attributes have been raised, you will be refunded a portion of the shards invested into it. These shards are very important for players planning to maximize their attributes and really have that over-the-top in-game gear. The next crafting option we will be jumping into is increasing your gear's base level. Leveling up gear not only increases the primary roll, whether it's firepower or armor, but also re-rolls its attributes values. Upon doing so with rare and epic items, this action will also free up one stage of the attribute upgrades which I talked about previously. Since the number of bonus attributes on an item is also determined by its level, leveling up your gear could also result in a new random bonus attribute being added. The resource iron will be used to upgrade your weapons, leather for the armor, and leveling epic or legendary items, the resource titanium will be used. Something important to note when leveling your gear and preparing for in-game content is the max level for gear in the game is level 50 compared to the character maxing out at level 30. There hasn't been any information provided on whether weapons and gear farmed in the campaign can also be leveled to the same level as the ones we find in expeditions, or if the stats once leveled are worth the resources. This is something I will be testing when the full game comes out, but for now, let's keep it moving. The next category of the crafting system we will be talking about is swapping weapon variances. This category is what we have the least information about, and a lot will become more clear once the full game releases, but for now let's just go over what we do know. Changing the weapon variances means changing the configuration of how the base weapon works. This means changing its rate of fire, the magazine size, the category of the weapon it is, and even its attachments. For example, a single fire rifle could possibly turn into a burst fire or automatic weapon depending on the variances available. We currently do not know the range of these variances or how many will be displayed with each weapon, but we can assume that the materials needed to change your weapon variants will be similar to leveling and raising its rarity. The fourth way to improve your gear through the crafting system is by raising the item's rarity. The highest rarity you are allowed to raise your gear to is epic because all the legendary pieces have a unique mod attached to them. The main usefulness I can see this having is if you find a really good rare item that is the same level as your epic gear but has better mods and attributes, then increasing this weapon or armor to epic will in turn increase the base firepower or armor on that gear piece, making it a more viable option than the current epic you have equipped. In order to raise the rarity of your gear, it's the exact same as increasing its level. You will need iron for weapons, leather for armor, and titanium for both when raising it to epic. Once you have raised the rarity of the gear, you will be presented with 3 random mods and choose one to equip from. This brings us to the last part of the crafting system, but also the most important: modding your gear. Mods are passive skills that can greatly modify the way your abilities, armor, and weapons work. Mods are not class specific, meaning you can equip a mod that gives an ability from another class. This will allow insane interaction and chaining of abilities the more complex your build gets. It's important to note that duplicate mods do not stack. If an item has 2 of the same mods on it, or you have a gear piece that has that mod equipped already, then it will only grant that bonus once. Loot on the ground will never have duplicate mods, but these rules can be broken when changing out mods and crafting. Changing a mod on a weapon is repeatable. However, once choosing one slot to modify, the other mod slot becomes permanently locked from modification, meaning you can only change one mod on each item. You acquire mods by dismantling the item with that mod on it, and once you have one copy of that mod, you will not need to farm that specific mod ever again. All epic and legendary gear come with 2 mod slots. Each legendary weapon or armor piece also has their own unique tier 3 mod that can only be found on that piece. So for example, if you get 2 legendary weapons and are only interested in one, you can dismantle the other one, gaining its tier 3 mod, and then slotting it onto the legendary you have equipped, granting you 2 tier 3 mods. This process can be done with all weapons and armor you have equipped. The synergy between equipping different mods along with your abilities and skill tree path will play an important role in many in-game builds and clearing the expeditions. With the release of Outriders just a few days away, I hope many of you watching this video found it useful. If you did, please leave a thumbs up on the video and subscribe if you happen to be new to the channel. If you would like to refer back to any specific part of the video, there will be a timetable listed below in the descriptions to do so. I will be streaming Outriders pretty religiously once the game releases on April 1st, and will also continue doing guides and builds on YouTube similar to this one. Be sure to hop in my Discord to be notified when I go live on Twitch, know what builds and videos I will be doing in the future, and also stay up to date on all Outriders content. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.